You're listening to
Catholic Sprouts,
the daily podcast for Catholic kids that strives to plant seeds of faith. Hey there, Sprouts. Today is Wednesday, August 12th, 2020. This week on the Catholic Sprouts podcast, we are talking about the 9th commandment, thou shalt not covet your neighbor's wife. We've talked about how coveting means desiring and desiring to possess another person. Now, we can never possess another person because each person is a unique and beautiful creation of God and a true temple of the Holy Spirit. So all week, we have been hearing about saints who are celebrating their feast days this week. And I want you to continue to marvel at how unique each story is and allow it to remind you that each person you meet has a story, and truly understanding their story is how we guard ourselves from ever coveting or desiring to possess another person. Now, today we are celebrating the feast day of Saint Jane Frances de Chantal. Now, St. Jane Frances de Chantal was French. And the interesting thing about her life is that it took some pretty serious twists and turns. Now, St. Jane Frances de Chantal is a more modern saint than St. Lawrence or St. Francis, but she lived over 200 years ago in France. When she was just a year and a half old, her mother died. And then when she was only 21, she married. Her whole youth, she had been known as a very pleasant and beautiful woman, and she ended up making a very beautiful marriage to a baron, who is someone with a lot of power and prestige in France, and they lived in a castle. Throughout, St. Jane Frances de Chantal was very committed to the Lord, and she reinstituted daily Mass in the castle while she lived there. But she was only married to the baron for 7 years. In those 7 years, however, they had 6 children, but she struggled with a lot of hard things because 3 of those children died shortly after they were born. It was a very different time, and they didn't have hospitals and medicine as we have now. So this is unfortunately a terrible experience that many families went through. And then after 7 years of marriage, her husband died. So she was only about 30 years old when he died. After he died, she was very, very depressed. And in this depression, she looked for some spiritual guides. Eventually, she found a man who would later become a saint himself. His name was Saint Francis de Sales. He saw in Saint Jane Frances de Chantal a truly beautiful faith, a desire to help the poor, and a desire to really mimic what Mary did at the visitation. Remember, Mary heard that her cousin Elizabeth was pregnant, and she ran to be with her. She ran to serve her and to be present with her during her time of need. So St. Francis de Sales, he was very active. He had already founded an order for men, and he saw with Jane Frances de Chantal the opportunity to found an order for women. So together, they founded the Visitation Sisters, which is an order that still exists today. The Visitation Sisters work hard to help the sick. In fact, during her lifetime, St. Jane Frances de Chantal was known for her incredible generosity. Oftentimes, she would devote all of the resources of her monastery, including her own bed and her own food, to help with those that were ill and suffering. She was a tremendous example of giving without hesitation. And so, Sprouts, my challenge for you today on the feast day of St. Jane Frances de Chantal is to really trust where God leads. Her life took all sorts of turns. She was beautiful and well-loved, married young, went through lots of suffering, had children, lost some children, lost her husband, and eventually founded a religious order. God himself only knows the path that you will be taken on. So pray through the intercession of St. Jane Frances de Chantal that you can trustingly follow wherever God might lead. That's it for Catholic Sprouts today. We'll be back tomorrow, but until then, continue to grow in your faith and truly sprout into the beautiful creation that God created you to be. Just one more thing, we like to invite you to come and check out The Creed, which is a series for parents and children to use in the home during this uncertain time in the fall. It is an in-depth look at all that we believe, which we profess in the Nicene Creed each Sunday at Mass. It is made for the whole family, has some fun printables to go along with it. It will be very easy to use no matter which point you are with your own faith. And it is on sale right now for just $7 for the whole bundle, which will take you from September all the way up into Advent. So check the notes for this podcast episode for the direct link to find more details.